have a question for you. Does your life excite you? Is it juicy and interesting? Do you hop out of bed in the morning enthusiastic to start your day? Or is it boring and mundane? Do you find yourself just going through the motions of your day, of your life, stuck on autopilot, not really thinking about what matters most to you? Now, there's no wrong answer here. It is, however, something you might already be thinking about. And if you're not, you might want to think about it, especially if your answer was option 2, the boring, mundane, autopilot life where you're not thinking about what matters to you. Maybe you feel disappointed or discouraged that your life isn't what you thought it would be. Maybe you had these big grandiose plans when you were a kid or growing up or even in your early adulthood, and somehow you found yourself off track. Or maybe you are on track for what you thought you wanted and you don't feel as fulfilled as you thought you would. It's not all it was cracked up to be. And now you're thinking, there's not much I can do about it now because it's too late. I'm too old. Well, let me tell you something. It is never too late to reinvent yourself and your life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So stick with me. Welcome to the Women Rockin' Midlife Podcast, soulful wellness to elevate your second act. You deserve to deeply love every moment of your life, living your best life with pure joy, optimal health and abundance, with the energy, time, and inner peace to savor experiences with your loved ones and with yourself. Hi, I'm Jen Kunkel. Join me on this soulful journey to complete wellness in midlife and beyond. You know, as we age, we really start thinking about what our life is about and what we've done and where we've come and where we're going. And you start to realize, oh my gosh, I might have more of my life behind me than I do ahead of me. And I'm not really sure I did it right. Well, there is no doing it right, first of all. Maybe you feel disappointed in how your life has turned out, what it's become, or maybe you're not super disappointed. It's not like a big letdown, but you're sort of finding yourself feeling kind of bored, not excited, not so passionate about life, and you're feeling like, wow, is this really it? Is this all there is to it? And you might be feeling like, I don't have time to do anything different now. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess this is just it. And you might think, am I just having a midlife crisis here? Well, what if these thoughts that you have in midlife are not a crisis? They're simply a reevaluation, an opportunity to reassess where you are and to reinvent your whole life or any part of it at any stage of life. It is so easy to slip into a rut, and it's great to step back and take a closer look at your life and your goals and how you're feeling about it. Not just your goals and things that you thought you want, but how you're feeling about what's really important to you now. You reassess all of this and you can adjust, right? And I can assure you, it is never too late. For example, I had a friend in college when I was going to school for chemical engineering, and I thought at the time, actually, I already thought I was old. I was 24 when I started college full-time to do this, to get my chemical engineering degree. And I met this lady who she was, I believe, in her early 50s, and she had retired from being a teacher. And she was starting a whole entire new career, and she was so passionate about it. She studied so hard and she worked, she loved when we actually ended up working at the same place together after school. And she just really seemed like she was so joyful about her job and she really loved it. And it was like she completely reinvented her life, went from school teacher to chemical engineer, and she thrived. So it is never too late. She took 4 years of her life to go to school and get the degree, and And that was a transition for her into this new life. So it's never too late. You can do anything. I mean, she went back and got a full-on bachelor's degree that took 4 years. It's never too late. So what happens that steers us off course? Or what happens in life where you never really stepped back to take a look at what you wanted in the first place? There are patterns that steer you off the course of doing what you really want in your life. The first one addresses the part where maybe you never really took a step back and looked at what you really wanted for yourself. Maybe your parents already had something in mind. Maybe you just had the social constructs that steered you in a certain direction and you never really thought about it. You just thought, okay, these are my options and that's it. Like, pick one. Or maybe your family wanted you to go into a certain direction. So that's one pattern of behavior, is that you're listening to what other people want. Another pattern is that you get caught up in supporting others and you lose track of your own dreams. Especially for women, we tend to be nurturing, caring, we want to take care of others. And no, I'm not saying no men do that, because yes, men do that. And not every woman does it either. It is something that we can get caught up in, though, is supporting others, pleasing other people, doing what they want, taking care of them. You also might have procrastination for various reasons. There's a multitude of reasons why you might be procrastinating, but maybe you're just putting off what you really want because you're busy. You're busy with the direction that you already took in your life. You're busy supporting others. You're like, I'll do that later. Or you might be procrastinating for some other reasons that are more within and internal, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too. You might not be sharing what you really want with the people around you for various reasons also. You might be embarrassed. You might think, oh, who am I to want to do that? Whatever it is. You might be worried about what other people think. And you're not sharing what it is that you really want. So maybe that kind of all ties in with what we already talked about too, where you're busy taking care of others. And you get even busier taking care of others because you're not setting healthy boundaries. You're not sharing that, hey, you know what? I need to make space in my life to do this other thing right now because this is something that's really important to me that I really want. So you're just not sharing for whatever reasons. You also might not be sharing who you really are. And that can be a big one. For the same reasons, you're worried about what people think. You're not sure that they'll understand because they've known you as the way that you're being all the time. And maybe you have these parts of you that you hold back because you're worried about what other people will think. You have these pieces of you that you never share, that you never let out, that just are kind of in the back of your mind. And you're like, I don't know, do I really have what it takes? So that brings me to the thought patterns that cause these behavior patterns. And we've already talked about this a little bit. Worrying about what other people think. I mean, that's huge. That is so huge. And you might even think, oh, I don't care what other people think of me. But I bet you there are some things, some areas of your life, some aspects of yourself that you don't let out because you're worried about what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. You don't want to be judged. You don't want to feel judged. And you certainly don't want to hear any negativity from other people. Because sometimes when we share things that we really want, they might be outside the comfort zone of the people around us, and they might get negative on us. And no matter how confident you are or how good you feel about it, especially if it's something new that you've been holding back, that you've been a little worried about sharing, it can be deflating to hear negative comments from the people in your life. So that is a legitimate concern, and we're still going to talk through it, okay? Another thought pattern that you might have that could cause these behavior patterns that are keeping you off track or steering you off track is maybe you're thinking of doing something, or that you want to do something that you don't believe you have the skills or ability to do already. Well, of course you don't. If you've never done it, you don't have the skills. You haven't developed them. Think about anything new that you start. it's going to be challenging to some extent. Sometimes it'll be hard. Sometimes it will be downright hard. And that's okay because it's new and you're learning. So you don't have the skills or ability or experience to do things that you haven't already done at all, that you've never had any experience with. Maybe you will be a rare case and you'll have natural ability when you try it. But for the most part, yeah, you're going to have to develop those skills. And the more you do it, the more you experience it, you're going to have to create that experience for yourself so that you develop the ability to do it well. So there you go on that one. You might also believe that the life you want is not for you. It's only for other people. Now that goes a lot deeper. And maybe you don't realize you have this confidence issue. Maybe that is stopping you anyway. That you just deep down, you don't believe that it's possible for you. Like you could see other people doing it and just go, yeah, they did it because there's something, like you somewhere inside believe that there's something innately different about you versus people who've already done the things that you want to do. So this brings us into kind of the emotional patterns that are behind those thoughts. You're lacking confidence. You're feeling doubt. Maybe you feel unworthy. There could be all kinds of stuff going on beneath the surface, your emotional patterns, and everyone's going to be different. There's not just like automatically, oh, if you have this behavior, then you have this thought and this emotion must be behind it. There might be some commonalities that happen on a regular basis, but really the emotional patterns are very personal to you. And you need to evaluate them with somebody who knows and has experience doing that. Or you can evaluate them on your own if you can dig really deep and get past any preconceived notions that you already have. Like, if you think, oh no, I have a lot of confidence. What are you talking about? I'm comfortable talking to people or doing this or doing that. There's still going to be something. If you're not doing it, you're lacking confidence around it. If you're not doing it and you want to do it, then odds are you're lacking confidence to some degree. And that's part of what's keeping you from doing it. You know, feeling doubt that, oh, maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. What if? Well, what if? What if you can? You know? And of course, it's not that simple. There's deeper work behind this. I mean, sometimes it's that simple. You could just go, look at those other people who did that. And you can see kind of like, oh, you know what? Compared to me, I think I actually do have more ability, even naturally, than they would have, but they're still doing it. So why not me? And then that feeling of unworthiness that you might have too, you know, it's helpful to figure out where those feelings are coming from. What's really causing it? You know, is it just a little bit of unfamiliarity, like, oh, I don't have experience doing that, so I don't really know what's going to happen, and just kind of a normal level of, you know, not feeling that, oh yeah, I know I can do that, I'm down? Or is it something deeper where you actually have like a deep-seated feeling of unworthiness? Where does it come from? Where does it stem from? Is it something that you need to work through and resolve from your past? So those are the patterns. Now, let's talk a little bit about where some of these emotional patterns can come from. As far as social norms and conditioning, I will say that I think we can all agree, for the most part, the world, or some parts of the world, you know, there's some parts of the world that are not a good place for women still, that they're oppressed and they're kept back, they're not allowed to have education and that sort of thing. For the most part, you know, the countries that are more open with that kind of stuff, the world is a much friendlier place for women these days, for the most part, in most places. Now, I think the fact that there are many places where women are still treated like that, that's going to affect our subconscious. We know that there are places in the world where women are not allowed to do the same things men are allowed to do. That has to impact our subconscious, thinking that. There are nuances of even modern society in free countries that could still hold us back if we let them. Now, I'm not a big feminist crying about how unfair the world is, and I never have been. I do think it's important to be honest about the reality. Now, like I said, we have a lot of things coming into our subconscious, little nuances, little things that maybe other people aren't noticing. Maybe most people don't notice. Maybe even I didn't notice them in the past because I was like, I used to feel like women are treated equally now. We've gotten past that. And there are still some things that show up, though. And I think a lot of that, especially for women in our generation at our age of life, because I remember when I first started working, 17, 18, 19, early on in the late 80s, early 90s, there were things going on in the workplace that we would probably construe as pretty sexist now, Our mothers were like the first generation that worked outside the home, and not all of them did. And maybe they only had certain types of jobs, So back when I first started working in the late 80s, early 90s, there were still fewer women in certain jobs in like high level positions. I remember there was a branch manager that came in that was female, and it was unusual for a woman to be in that position and have that job. And I was probably 19, 20, maybe 21, something like that. But that was early 90s. So sexual harassment in the workplace was a brand new thing, like concern over that. It was brand new. That was never a thing before that. I remember in my first office jobs, one of the requirements of the dress code was that women had to wear pantyhose. And I was just like, oh, that's so weird. And making the coffee, like I had to make the coffee or fetching coffee for the boss or whatever other people. And I hated that. I felt like that was so demeaning, the getting coffee thing. I really felt like that was demeaning. And yeah, I noticed it and I didn't like it. Sometimes just generally in society, women are told, hey, don't be too loud, too bold, too aggressive, or you're obnoxious, self-centered, or you're too bossy. We get those things even still in some circles of society. We have these societal norms that are ingrained in us, and they drip into our subconscious, and they are going to affect our mindset around certain things. Logic doesn't matter. It is in our subconscious, meaning we are not aware of it, and we can logic our way through it all day long. But some of these things we're not even noticing. They've become so normal that we don't notice them, but they're still a little bit, they're really a little oppressive. I don't really like to say that, but they can be if we allow them to be. Family norms and your upbringing are inserted into your subconscious as well, okay? So just question and start to recognize the patterns that you have that relate to these false and unsupportive norms that we kind of accept and a lot of times don't even notice. So practical tips, besides just starting to notice, I want to walk you through a process that you can actually do that will help you evaluate this and really reassess your life. And it uses my WILD method. So the first step is the W, and that is, who do you want to be? Like, who are you? And really evaluate who you are at your core, your authentic self. And you can just journal on this for now. The I is for inspiring environments. You create environments around you that support you in achieving what you want to achieve. Now, sometimes this is going to look like setting healthy boundaries with other people so that you make the space in your life for doing the things that you want to do, right? So that's just one example. There's a lot of different components to that. The L is for liberate, and that is to liberate unsupportive emotional patterns that took you off track or that are keeping you off track. So this is where you look deeper within, a lot of inner reflection. This could be deeper work depending on what you have going on. You're looking at patterns that keep coming up. Maybe you have some unworthiness patterns or a fear of success pattern or fear of failure or fear of looking bad. There's a lot of stuff. It shows up in different ways, and it could be related to something that's deep within. So that's where you would look at those kind of things. Now, you can start out right now with a little bit of self-reflection, do some journaling. If you notice a behavioral pattern, you could ask yourself, step back and say, where's that coming from? And you can step it back to what emotions you're feeling, and you can step it back to, did something happen in my past that created this? Did I learn it from somebody else? Did I have an experience where I felt like this was my trauma response? This was my way of surviving or of thriving despite whatever was going on. So there's a lot going on there with that one. And here's the easy one, design. I have an extraordinary life blueprint process that takes you through designing the life that you really want. You look at all these different aspects of your life. And I'm going to offer you that download at the end of this episode, which we are nearing actually. I have reinvented myself in the past, probably multiple times, really. And what it really took was taking a step back and assessing my life. I was actually very, very unhappy when I was about to turn 30 in my life. I was married. I was working as a chemical engineer, and I was not excited about my life at all. In fact, I was pretty unhappy. I felt like a dread I felt dread when it came to going to work. I wasn't very happy in my day-to-day life. It just wasn't working for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I don't want to. I was away from my family. Like, I lived in another city away from my family, and I hated that. I absolutely hated that. And I just really thought about, is this how I want to live my life? Or do I want something different? And what do I want? And honestly, I didn't figure out what I wanted, but I knew with definitive certainty that I wasn't anywhere near what I wanted. So I scrapped it. I scrapped it all. I got divorced. I left my job, and I moved back to Vegas near my family, or some of my family. And I would not change a thing about that, except that maybe I wouldn't have moved away in the first place. But, all of our experiences they create who we are. So I really wouldn't change that, even if I had the opportunity to now, because how do I know that I would have become who I am now if I didn't have all those experiences? I probably wouldn't have. So that's my take on regret. Is I don't have regret because I would not be the person that I am. And I actually like the person that I am. Even if I'm not always totally excited about my life, I still like the person that I am, and I'm moving towards that more excitement in my life, or more juiced and more passionate about my life. We all have ups and downs, different times, right? And when you have those downs, it's a good time to step back and say, okay, what's this about? What's not working, and how can I veer back onto my path? So like I said, today I'm going to offer you the Extraordinary Life Blueprint template so you can map out what you want. The link will be in the show notes. And I want to thank you for joining me today. So hit me up on the socials, and those are in the show notes also. Let's rock this midlife thing together. Much love.